All right, Shabbosai, good morning, a good tevach, a good yar, a good kvittel, a piskatava, a schus baruch Hashem, to be able to begin another year of learning together. A shkoyach to everyone who, it was beautiful to see. We had a full front of the shul yesterday, Baruch Hashem, for Daf Yomi. Very special considering the fact that we only had about 50 minutes of break, and Baruch Hashem, 47 of them were taken up by Daf Yomi. It was a tremendous chus, and I have no doubt that in moments like that, the Rebbe Shalom looks down and he says, wow, what a privilege it is to be a father of such incredible children. And how incredible is it that on a day, everybody's exhausted, everybody's pushing themselves, everybody's standing and davening and fasting, and that the few precious moments of free time that we have, we spend learning Torah. Such a tremendous zechus. It should be a zechus for all of us, for our families, for Klal Yisrael, and Emir Hashem, it should be a year. Ooh, that is loud today, no? That is really loud. They wanted it. Wow, okay. It should just be a schos in Meretz Hashem for the return of our hostages, a schos for our precious soldiers, and a schos in Meretz Hashem for Besoros Tovos for all of Klal Yisrael. Begin by thanking our sponsors for today, Baruch Hashem, to thank our annual Talmud Torah sponsor, the Tilson Mishpacha from Eretz Yisrael, for dedicating all the Sherman Drashos this year as a schos for Besoros Tovos for Am Yisrael. Our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Tishrei, Dr. Linda Weinberg, in loving memory of her husband, Dr. Paul Weinberg Peretz Moshe Ben Avram David, Avram and Shandi Kelman, in memory of their parents, Jerome and Bernice Kelman, Alexander and Frederica David. Our week of learning sponsors, Jonathan and Alana Austin of Eretz Yisrael, as a token of Akar Satov, to Jonathan's brother-in-law, Avi Tobias of Edison, New Jersey, for introducing him to the Shir. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu continue to give all of us the strength, the wisdom, to continue Emir Hashem to make our way through the Yam Shel Talmud. To thank Greg and Rachel Levitan of Eretz Yisrael. Baruch Hashem, a lot of Eretz Yisrael sponsorships of Eretz Yisrael, formerly of Baltimore, now of Eretz Yisrael, for dedicating the week of learning in commemoration of the yahrzeit of Greg's mother, Esther Levitan, Esther Bas Herschel, Zichron Livracha, and our day of learning, Valentina Vase, in loving memory of her mother, Frida Davidovich, Zichron Livracha. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshama will have an aliyah and the family a nechama. We thank all of our sponsors for their incredible sponsorship. We hope in all merit of our Talmud Torah, all of the Neshama will have an aliyah, the families a nechama, and halavai should be a year of brachos for Klal Yisrael. So I will say today's daf is Kuf Yud. We have really a lot of exciting Gemara ahead of us today. We left off on Kuf Tes Amud Beis. And we left off Rabbi Yossi Chanina, third wide line in the widest lines, third wide line towards the bottom. So the Gemara says as follows. So also remember again, we're in the middle of this very interesting story of Pesel Micha, right? So again, remember there was this guy Micha. What did Micha decide to do? Micha decided to make a breakaway. And we decided to make a breakaway. So breakaways never end well. They never end well. Right? So I'll say just a general statement. Right? They never end well. Anything that is started in the midst of machlokes or difficulty somehow just whatever. Anyway, so Micha started a breakaway, but of course his breakaway was a little bit unique because every breakaway has to distinguish itself in some way. Whatever. So his breakaway was Avodah Zarah. So again, it's a good way. There was really no one else in that lane, so it was fantastic. So his breakaway was Avodah Zarah, but of course, again, if you're going to have a real Avodah Zarah breakaway, you need a Kohen. So he finds this guy, and this guy becomes his Kohen. So now we have been discussing who is this guy. So the pasuk itself says that he was from Yehuda and Levi. So remember again, how did we get to all of this? We got to all of this because in the laws of inheritance, we're trying to figure out where a father fits in all of this. So the last piece we left off with was there's son, and after son, there's father. And part of that was because the Gemara wanted to point out that Mishpachas Av is Kruya Mishpacha, Mishpachas Aim is not Kruya Mishpacha. Father's family is called Mishpacha, mother's family is not called Mishpacha. So the Gemara tried to challenge that from here because by this guy who was appointed as the Kohen in Micha's shul, so it says he was a Levi and from Yehuda. So where we kind of left off with over here is he actually wasn't a Levi. Rather, what happened? His name was Levi. Then we challenged that his name wasn't Levi, his name was Yonasan. So a lot of we'll say there's a tremendous Musar Haskell in this. In life, when you don't stand for the right things, you have blurred identity. the identity we create in this world, is based on the fact that we stand for the right things. So there's a reason why no one knows his name. Again, you're going to see this story actually has a very beautiful and happy ending. But no one knows his name because I mentioned this in the pre-Yom Kippur message that I put on video. To me, I had this thought last week. You look at all of these protests that happen. I'm talking about here in America on the college campuses. And it's incredible to see, right? All the protesters, they always wear the keffiyeh, they always wear a mask, they always cover their face, which is pathetic in and of itself. If you stand for something, then stand for it. But it's such a musar haskell. No one is ever going to remember these people. They're meaningless. They're absolutely meaningless. So shkoyach, you should cover your face, because the truth is, you don't matter. You don't matter because you're not standing for anything that's MS. It's fascinating over here. It's like no one ever tries to figure out, well, what was Moshe's real name? Now, Moshe has a number of different names, but we know all of them to be his name. Why? Because when you stand for the right things in life, that concretizes and solidifies your identity. When you stand for the wrong things in life, that creates identity ambiguity. So it's fascinating over here that this individual who played a major role in Jewish history, because Pesach Micha was a major event, we can't even nail down his name exactly. An incredible yesod as we go into the new year, what do we stand for? And what do we stand up for? And what are the pillars of our identity? And do we have clarity about the things we hold dear? And do we live those very values and ideals as well? That's what creates identity clarity. Wishy-washiness, identity ambiguity. All right, so the Gemara says as follows. The Gamhu Tov Toar Ma'od. So now the Gemara was talking about this idea that to make it even more confusing, the pasuk links him to Menashe. This guy, this Kohen, this Yona's son, this Kohen in Micha's shul links him to Menashe. So the Gemara says, so what was Menashe? Menashe was also unfortunate. Menashe was the longest serving monarch, and for a number of years he wasn't Oved Avodah Zarah. Then he became a Baal Tshuva. So the idea over here is you connect bad people with bad people. In other words, you connect bad things tend to attract other bad things. So Rabbi Yosef Chanina says it from here. V'gamhu tov toar ma'od. So Rabbi says this is fascinating. So pasuk from Malachim Aleph. So the pasuk talking about over here, Adonio ben Chagis. Adonio ben Chagis was one of the sons of David HaMelech. Adonio ben Chagis, essentially, he didn't lead a revolt. But what he did is, David HaMelech is dying, literally on his deathbed, and the pasuk says, Adonio ben Chagis misnasei lemar ani emloch. He proclaimed himself as king. David is literally dying. His father's literally dying. And Adonai decides to take advantage of the opportunity. He declares himself as the king. So it's interesting, the pasuk says, the Gamhu Tov Toar, Adonio ben Chagis was also very good looking, and he was born after Avshalom. Now I will say, when you look at that pasuk, what does it sound like? It sounds like Adonio ben Chagis and Avshalom are maternal brothers. Right? Well, maternal, obviously they're the same father, David. Right? It sounds like they were both born of the same mother. He was born after Avshalom. Va'alo Adonio ben Chagis, va'Avshalom ben Ma'acha. But it's not true. They have two different mothers. So what's going on over here? Elo mitoch she'asa ma'isa Avshalom demar b'malchus tzalakasam Avshalom. So we'll say, but rather, since Adonio acted in the same way of Avshalom, what did Avshalom do? Avshalom went ahead and rebelled against his father. So just like Avshalom rebelled against his father, Adonio. So the pasuk is linking the actions and the behaviors of Adoniah with Avshalom, that they both rebelled against David HaMelech. Incredible. So I will say this is a testament to this concept that halacha l'maisa, so bad behavior attracts other bad behavior, and bad people attract other bad people. And that's why it's so important to recognize that our actions don't only create realities just for our immediate selves, but they send out almost energy, and that energy itself attracts other like energy. If I'm sending out good energy, so it attracts other positive holy things. If I'm sending out negative energy, so it attracts the negative things as well, unfortunately. Amar Rabbi Lazar, the Olam Yidabek Adam, The olam yudabek adam betovim. So the Gemara says over here, a person should always connect himself with good people. Shari Moshe. So this is actually a fascinating Gemara. Shari Moshe shenasa bas Yisro yatsa mimeno yehonasan. So I will say. So now, first of all, let's take a step back. We're going with the approach that the name of the non-Kohen who served as the Kohen in the Micha breakaway, right, was named Yonasan. Now what we've also established is that he was a descendant of Moshe Rabbeinu. Wild. Descendant of Moshe Rabbeinu, right, because remember it said, Ben-Menashe and Gershom, he's descendant of Moshe Rabbeinu. So now we'll say the Gemara says, listen to this, person should always be careful about literally who they connect with, but here it's also talking about who they marry. Moshe married Yisro, and as a result of that, what happened? Yatsa mimenu Yonasan. He had an Enikol, he had a grandson, Yonasan. I will say now, what the Gemara is highlighting over here is, what does that mean? Yisro is a tzaddik. So the idea the Gemara seems to be highlighting over here is that Yisro was a tzaddik, but Yisro also spent a significant amount of his life embedded in Avodah Zarah, and other parts of his family were still embedded in Avodah Zarah. And there's a certain, almost like, the Gemara seems to say, almost like a certain like residual in the spiritual DNA. So the Gemara links the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu has a grandson by the name of Yonasan, or a grandson of like Yonasan who worshipped Avodah Zarah, with the fact that he married into the family of Yisro. Conversely, Aaron shenasa bas Aminadav, but Aaron, who married into a pious family, married the daughter of Aminadav, Yatzeh meno Pinchas. He had a descendant named Pinchas. The Gemara says, "Whoa, hold up there for just a second." So these Gemaras also are always a little bit complicated. Why are they complicated? You don't choose your family. Right? You really don't choose your family. And there's always this very delicate balance. So let's say again, a man finds the most wonderful woman in the world, but her family is right? Good. That's well said. So what, the man shouldn't marry this woman when she has alamailas? So again, I'll say of course not, because again, we don't choose the family we're born into. What the Gemara just is highlighting is that there are a lot of different factors that go into who and what we are. And the truth is, and family does make a difference about that. And there's certain ruchnius that's embedded in the DNA of family that comes out in different ways. And by the way, I just want to point out, this comes out in the positive as well. One shouldn't think, that's the Gemara uses Aaron and his wife. But the idea being that there's, so I'll tell you what I take from this Gemara. I don't take from this Gemara a lesson in Shidduchim, because the truth is, Shidduchim the shidduch is already broken enough. We don't need to break it anymore, right? So I'll tell you what I take from this Gemara is, just understand that what we do has implications not just on ourselves, but the actions we engage in create certain realities, certain markers in the spiritual DNA of our families that manifests itself for generations to come. So as if you didn't have enough on your head, right? Just understand, the decisions you make today have implications for your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and going forward. And I will say, a lot of times you can't walk that back. So I do something. See, here's the interesting part is, for me, whatever I do, I could do tshuva for. A lot of times, the implications we do for our families, those are things you can't walk back. We know this, right? I make a mistake in front of my children, and the truth is, I can't walk it back. It's fascinating, right? Lagabe me, whatever I do, I could be about tshuva. And for me, tshuva has no limits. I could even turn my zidonos into zechuyos. I could turn my intentional barriers into, that's me. But once my actions have impact on other people, you cannot walk that back. And I think that's the Gemara sensitizing us to. That when I engage in certain behaviors, they imprint on my familial DNA. And to a certain degree, you can't walk that back, which just tells us to live life with a heightened sense of vigilance, responsibility, and good decision making. Because what I do is not just about me, it's for generations to come. So Gemara says, but one second, Pinchas doesn't come from Yisrael? So Gemara says, Pinchas la mi Yisrael asi, v'aksiv, ve'elazar ben Aaron, lokach lo mimnos putia lo li'isha. And the pasuk says, "Did Elazar, the son of Aaron, took from the daughters of Putiel for a wife?" Now, say, who is Putiel? My lav the asim Yisro shepitim agalim the avodah zara. Now, one of the names of Yisro was Putiel. Why was he called Putiel? Because he used to fatten up oxen for avodah zara in his past life. Right? He would go ahead and fatten up the oxen for avodah zara. Say, so you ask yourself, why would he be known by a name like that? Right? We have a concept like this that you're not supposed to remind about tshuva, right? Of his past life, right? You have a friend who's decided to change himself around. You're not supposed to say, you're looking great. You remember when you were mamish like a guy, right? You're not supposed to say stuff like that, right? In other words, we don't remind people of their past transgressions. So how could it be over here that we're calling Yisro Putiel because he fattened up oxen for avodah zara? I'll tell you what I'm saying, because it's a compliment. What's the compliment? You see, even in avodah zara, do you have to offer up a fattened ox? You have to open a fattened ox? No, you could give the scrawniest one you want to. You could be Yotze like that as well. There's a maila that Yisro was always someone who strove for excellence. He was always someone who strove for excellence in his ruchnius. Okay, for a good part of his life, he was looking for ruchnius in all the wrong places, right? But lamaisa, that's not a pun, right? He was looking for ruchnius, but lamaisa, at the end of the day, even when he was looking for ruchnius, he was fattening up the ox. In other words, he was doing so with a hiddur mitzvah. I will say, isn't that incredible? Sukkot is coming. Sukkot is all about hiddur. Here's the Gemara about hiddur mitzvah. So Yisro did hiddur mitzvah even with avodah zara. Incredible. So therefore, again, it's a compliment. It's a tremendous compliment, I will say. That's why it's not the shras. So again, hiddur mitzvah, mamish the day after Yom Kippur. Incredible. So the Gemara says, V'halo. The Gemara says, no. So lo the asim Yosef. No. He didn't come from Yisro. Rather, again, when it says Mibnos Putiel, who does that mean? He came from Yosef. What was unique about Yosef? I will say, Shepit Beit B'Yitzro. I will say, this is ridiculous. So, in fact, Pinchas came from Yosef. So why is he called Mibnos Putiel? Because Yosef was Mefatfet B'Yitzro. What does that mean? Take a look at the second to last line in the Rashbam. Shepit Beit Masris V'Nilcham Kineged Yitzro. So Yosef constantly fought against his Yetzer Hara. Kidamrin Lakam Bepirkin so Chutz Mizakin Echad Shay Mafutvat Kinegdo. So remember again, Yosef was constantly tempted by the wife of Potiphar. But he constantly fought back against that desire. So the lashon of Mibnos, when it says that Pinchas was Mibnos Putiel, it means he's the descendant of Yosef who went ahead, Shepitpeit, struggled with his Yetzer Hara. How ridiculous is this? The day after Yom Kippur, what is the Gemara teaching us? The need to struggle against the Yetzer Hara. When does the fight against the Yetzer Hara begin? Today. Actually, it started last night already. It was all right. All right, no need for confessions over here, right? Calm down. Schedule a meeting. Right? So Lamaisa, how incredible is it that on the day after Yom Kippur, the Gemara is preparing. I'm sorry? This is yesterday's daf. Okay. Thank you. Let me make one thing clear. The schedule for Daf Yomi is governed by the mothership, right? The mothership is here, right? So listen to this. So the Gemara, but yes, it is technically part of yesterday's Daf. Ari, thanks for totally taking the wind out of my sails over there. Right? So here, for us, on the day after Yom Kippur, the Gemara is giving us, I will say, such an incredible idea. The battle begins again. We will say, know this, right? One of the most frustrating dynamics we have to encounter is hopefully all of us had an overwhelming and cathartic and uplifting Yom Kippur. And what's the most frustrating thing? Most frustrating thing is, I'm fighting again today. I'm fighting, right? The desires are back, the wants are back, the lusts are back, the Yetzer Hara is back, everything is back. Yeah, that's the way it works. Yom Kippur maybe gives you like a little bit of an oasis of spirituality. But the avodah for today is to be Mibnos Putiel and to become the kind of people Shemefatvim B'Yitzram. It's a struggle. What's the good news? The good news is we got this. The good news is we got this. We know what we have to do. We're ready. We're strong. We're bolstered with the beautiful ruchnius of Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, and we are ready to meet our challenges head on. Yetzer Hara, bring it on. Because at the end of the day, we are absolutely this year stronger and readier than ever. So how incredible is this? In 2 lines. Hidr Mitzvah, Sukkos, Pit Beit B'Yitzro, Yom Kippur, and ready to face the year ahead. Incredible. All right, so the Gemara says at the end of the day, so what's interesting is, once again, almost like a little bit of linealogical ambiguity about Pinchas. So is Pinchas a descendant from Yisro, or is Pinchas a descendant from Yosef? Now, all we know is that he's Mibenos Putiel. So, but again, we've just shown that those interpretations could go both ways. To which the Gemara says, Valo Shvatim Mevazin also. But yet, after Pinchas went ahead and killed Zimri and Cosby, the other tribes were disparaging him, and they said, Re'izim ben Putizeh, ben Shepitim Avi Imo Agam Avodazari, Harig Nasi Shevet Mi Yisrael. After Pinchas killed Zimri, who was the tribal prince of Dan, the other tribes stepped in and they said, "Who are you? Who are you? Your Zayda was fattening up calves for Avodah Zarah. Who are you to take the life of one of the tribal princes?" That seems to indicate that he's a descendant of Yisro. Top of Kuf Yud 110. Ari Elman, is this enough on today's daf for you now? We're now good. All right. So now Kuf Yud. Ella, so the Gemara says, so how do we reconcile this? Ella, avua di'ime mi Yosef, ima di'ime mi Yisro. So the Gemara says, well, say, interestingly enough, this is fascinating. Who was Pinchas descended from? He was descended both from Yosef and Yisro. So there are 2 possibilities. If his maternal grandfather, avua di'ime, if his maternal grandfather was from Yosef, then Ime di Ima mi Yisro. Then his maternal grandmother was from Yisro. Iavua di Ime mi Yisro. And if his maternal grandfather was from Yisro, then Ima di Ime mi Yosef. Then the maternal grandmother ultimately again was from Yosef. So also I said the idea is he's descended from both. He's descended from both from Yisro as well as from Yosef. And I will say, by the way, it's incredible, because if you think about this, this is dramatic. And now the whole Pinchas personality makes so much sense. Remember again, when does Pinchas rise up? He rises up in the middle of essentially a scourge of immorality, right? The Midianite women are luring the Jewish men to sin. Pinchas gets up in the middle, and remember, it kind of hit the apex when Zimri, who was the tribal prince of Dan, commits a public act of immorality with Cosby, who was a Midianite princess. And then Pinchas kills them both. In order for Pinchas to do this, what did he need to do? Number one, he needed to resist the urge to sin, like so many other men were doing. Right? Where did that strength come from? That strength came from Yosef. And then he had to have the strength to buck the trend, to stand up against evil. Where did that come from? That came from Yisro. Right, because Yisro stood up against idolatry, publicly reputed idolatry, which cost him very heavily. And he went ahead and essentially he stood by the side of the Ribono Shel Olam. So it's so fascinating. Pinchas had these zechuyos from both of his Zaydas, from Yisro and from Yosef, and that allowed him to take a principled stand, resist the temptation of immorality, and stand up against the trend of immorality. And I just want to point out, it loops back beautifully to the previous Gemara, because what did the previous Gemara say? When you act in a certain way, that imprints on your familial DNA. When you do certain things, that changes the DNA of your mishpacha, and your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren feel that. Did Yisro ever know that he would have an inical, that he would have a grandson named Pinchas? Did Yosef ever know that he would have a grandson named Pinchas? No, of course they didn't know. They didn't know. But the actions they took during their lifetime, the strength that they exhibited during their lifetime, the moral clarity, the spiritual fortitude that they exhibited, imprinted on their spiritual DNA and allowed Pinchas to do what he needed to do when the moment called upon him. Incredible. Let's go right there. So I'll say it's interesting, actually this works. Why? Because the lashon of the pasuk is that Yisro was descendant mibenos. Benos is what? Daughters, which indicates that there's this duality in the lineage, that there's the Putiel of Yisro and then there's the Putiel of Yosef. Incredible. Shmamino. Amrava. Hanos was a little bit more on this topic over here. Hanosi Isha, This is very interesting. Before you marry a woman, check out her brothers. check out her brothers. Shne'emar vayikach Aaron es Elisheva bas Aminadav achos Nachshon. Because the pasuk is when Aaron got married, he married Elisheva, the daughter of Aminadav, and who was this brother of Nachshon. In other words, Elisheva was the brother of Nachshon, right? Nachshon ben Aminadav, right, who goes into the Yam Suf first. That was Aaron HaKohen's brother-in-law. So why does the Torah have to tell us? The Gemara says, "Mimashal shneimar bas Aminadav, en yodeh she'achos Nachshoni." So once you're telling me that Elisheva is the daughter of Aminadav, I know that Elisheva is the sister of Nachshon. So why do you have to spell it out? To which the Gemara says, "Talmud lomar, ma Talmud lomar, achos Nachshon, mikan shano se isha." Excuse me. So Rabbi says here, it's very interesting. You see from here, when you marry a woman, you should check out her brothers. Check out her brothers. That ultimately, again, her brothers might be a good indication. Rabbi said there's a lot written about this. Exactly, what exactly is it that the brothers have to do with the girl? So Rabbi says, so first of all, on a certain level, so it could very well be that a young woman's expectations of what she expects a man to be like could very much be forged by what she sees in her brothers. So the shaila is, assuming that she likes her brothers and she looks up to her brothers, it would be interesting to see the qualities that she admires. So you could tell a lot perhaps about the hierarchy of the qualities she has by the brothers she has. So therefore, again, certainly that bode well in the case of Nachshon ben Aminadav. Good, other interpretations as well, but we'll go weiter. Tana, so it's incredible. Rov banim domin la'ache ha'em. So most sons are like the mother's brothers. Sometimes you see this, you're like, oh God, right? So nice, Shemirachim, right? So nice. So ultimately, again, Rov Banim, the majority of sons are like the brothers of the mother. Now, we'll say again, what's the pshat with this? So remember, when a woman is raising her sons, right? Assuming she has brothers, what's the frame of reference she has for how boys are raised? What's the frame of reference? Her brothers, because that's what she saw in Rome. In other words, I don't think there's like a mystical piece over here. I think it's just like a pashit idea. In other words, we'll say it's the same way. Right? Initially, how do we know how to be parents? How do we know how to be parents? Right? Our parents. Again, that sometimes goes well and it sometimes goes poorly. And sometimes as we progress, we recognize things that we have to stop doing, right? Sometimes you learn the opposite, what to do, what not to do, right? But Lamaisa, everybody, but at least initially, ultimately, again, you learn what to do from how you're brought up. So again, how does a woman know how to raise her sons? Well, she saw her brother. She saw her mother raise her brothers. So that's the assumption over here. So therefore the Gemara says, most children are going to be like the brothers of the mother. Okay, I just want to point out, this is not like a haftacha. It's not a haftacha. Like one should not feel that they're, because what happens again, if the mother doesn't come from the best family, she doesn't necessarily want to raise her kids like her brothers. Okay, obviously everybody has choice about how they raise their children, but the idea is almost like the default is like this. So Mar goes weiter. So okay, back to Pesel Micha. Back to Micha. A lot in this Gemara over here. Vayasuru. So we'll say, now watch this. Now the Gemara goes on, and the Gemara says as follows. Now what ended up happening over here, something interesting happens with Pesel Micha. There was a group that came from Dan, from Shevet Dan, and they decided that they wanted to hire Yona's son for them. Right? Apparently, Micha breakaway Shtibel is right, enduring incredible success. Dan wants part of this, so they go to try to hire away Yona's son. They want to hire away Yona's son. So the boss says it's incredible. So they come to Yona's son, get ready for this Gemara. So they say to Yona's son, Vayasuru Shalom Vayomer. They say to him, Mi Viyacha Alom. Who brought you here? They're asking Yona's son, like, how did you get here? Uma ata ose bazeh. And what are you doing with all of this? Uma lecha po. And bless you. And what are you doing here? Ma lecha po. What is there for you here? Now we'll say. Now listen to this. So what the Gemara is intrigued by is the lashon of their question is interesting. They're asking Mi hiviyacha halom. Who brought you here? Ma'ata ose bazeh. What are you doing with this? Uma lecha po. So we'll say, pay attention to these three words. Halom, bazeh, po. So the Gemara says, listen to this, get ready for this. Amru lo. They said to Yona's son, Lav mi Moshe ka'asis? aren't you a great grandson of Moshe Rabbeinu? In other words, they said to him, aren't you a great grandson of Moshe Rabbeinu? Dichsiv Bey, al tikrav halom. So we'll say, so it's a little bit of a play on words over here. Aren't you a great grandson of Moshe Rabbeinu? And Moshe Rabbeinu, by the sneh, by the burning bush, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him, do not come any closer. Halom, that's a play on words over here. Lav mi Moshe causes dichsiv bey mazeh biyadecha. Are you not the descendant of Moshe Rabbeinu? When HaKadosh Baruch Hu asks about the staff, what is in your hand? Lav mi Moshe causes dichsiv bey the ata po amod imadi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe Rabbeinu, you come, stand with me. So essentially, they're shocked. They're shocked. Like, we want to hire you. Don't get us wrong. But what happened to you? What happened to you? How does a grandson of Moshe Rabbeinu become a Kohen Gadol of Avodah Zarah? So if I task Kohen Avodah Zarah, how could isn't this incredible? Isn't this incredible? How they're asking him, okay, Shkayach, you're doing great, right? Shimcha lefanecha, you have a great reputation. You are the best Kohen for Avodah Zarah out there. Let's be clear, right? Here's the offer letter. We want you. We're going to double the salary, benefits package, right? Everything. But just out of curiosity, how does a grandson of Moshe Rabbeinu become a Kohen for Avodah Zarah? We'll say, hold on to your seat. Amar lahen, kach mekublani beis avi abba. So Yonasan says, the truth is, I'm doing this because of what I learned from my grandfather. What did Moshe always say? Li'olam yaskir adam atzmo li'avodah zarah va'ayitztarich lebrios. Zayda always said, it is better. Now, again, obviously, somebody wasn't paying attention to Zayda's words, but watch this. Zayda Moshe always said that a person should sooner hire himself out for Avodah Zarah and not rely on people. In other words, don't rely on handouts. Don't rely on gifts. Don't rely on people's kindness or charity. Do whatever you have to do in order to be self-sufficient. And even if that means you hire yourself out to idolatry, that's what you do. By the way, the Rashbam points out something very interesting on this. Rashbam points out that what Yonasan was telling these guys was, Chevra, you think I believe in this stuff? I don't believe in it. I don't believe in this. But the pay is good, right? The pay is good, right? And Lamaisa, again, this is the parnasa that I have, right? This is the parnasa that I have. This is what happens when you don't pay attention in school, we'll say. Right? Let this be a lesson, right? This is the only option I have for parnasa. So my only option is this, or rely on handouts. And at the end of the day, Zayda always said, better to go ahead and hire yourself out to idolatry than to rely on people. Now the Gemara says, by the way, whoa, what did Moshe Rabbeinu actually say? V'hu savar avodah zarah mamish. Now he interpreted the Zayda's words as literally avodah zarah. Velohi, that is not what Moshe Rabbeinu meant. Rather, what did Moshe Rabbeinu say? Ella avodah zarah means what? Avodah shezara lo. Hire yourself out even for something that you think is beneath your dignity. We'll say, Avodah Zarah means strange work or alien work. That again, what Moshe Rabbeinu was saying was, take any job you can get, but be self-sufficient. And even if that job is quote-unquote beneath your dignity, and it may very well be beneath your dignity, take it, because there is nothing more important in this world than being self-sufficient. Kida Amrli Rav Kahana, Natush Nevelta B'Shuka, V'Shakal Igra. Better to skin a carcass in the marketplace and make an honest wage. Velotema gavra rabba ana v'zela b'milsa. And don't say, this is beneath my dignity, right? I'm too good for this kind of work. So Moshe says, this is incredible, by the way. So Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, apparently Moshe Rabbeinu always said, V'olam yaskir adam atul avodah zara v'yitztarich lebrios. Do what you have to do. Do what you have to do. Even if it's alien work, even if you feel it's beneath your dignity. Now the problem is Yonasan, for some reason, took the Zayda's words literally and felt that Avodah Zarah was actually Avodah Zarah. And that's how he landed this job. Kevan Shera David Shemamon Chavran. Now watch this. Fast forward a little bit. So Yonasan apparently had a couple of different jobs here and there, and then he decided to become a Baal Tshuva. It's the unwritten part of the story. It became about Shuvah. I was going to say, now obviously what's helpful over here in the story is he never really believed any of this stuff anyway. He was doing it because it was his parnasa. But Lamai said at a certain point he becomes about Shuvah. David HaMelech, Kever Shra David Shemamon Chavan Alav, Biyoser, Mino Ala Otzros. Now apparently he was still alive when David HaMelech becomes king. David HaMelech appointed him as the royal treasurer. Now why? Because it will say someone who was so careful with money. What does it mean he was careful with money? What it means is that he was someone who did not want to rely on anything from anyone else, didn't want to accept anyone from anyone else. There's a certain level of honesty and integrity that is associated with such a person. David HaMelech saw that he was such an honest and integrous, I know that's not a word, right? But integrous person, right? But I like it. But that, right? That Lemaisa, he decided to go and hire him as the treasurer for David HaMelech's royal treasury. Incredible. Shneimar uShavuel ben Gershom ben Menashe nagid ala Otzros. So I was like, this is great. So Shavuel, the son of Gershom ben Menashe, was in charge of the treasuries. V'chi Shavuel Shmo. We'll say this guy is incredible, right? His name's not Shavuel. Rather, what's his name? Yona's son. So I say, do you understand what's happening over here, right? Finally, we settled on a name, Yona's son, and now he has a new name, Shavuel. Somebody says his name is not Shavuel, his name is Yona's son. I'm Rabbi Yochanan, Sheshav lekel b'chol libo. So I say, Shavuel so beautifully is a descriptive name. It's a contraction. Shav lekel. He returned back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and became Baal Tshuva. So I'll say that's the end. Right? That's the happy ending to the Yona's son story. Yona's son becomes Shalom. I just want to point out something else. What's the most Haskell with all of these name changes? The most Haskell is you could change your identity as many times as you want. And that is the beautiful gift that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us. The greatest gift in the world is the power of change. So you might start as Levi, and then Levi becomes a Yonasan, and then a Yonasan becomes a Shavuel. In life, you can make of yourself as you want. But the beautiful, I will say, just the heart-warming end to this story is that he ends off his life as Shavuel. He ends off his life ultimately again as a Baal Tshuva. We possess the power to change. And we possess the power to engage in comprehensive change, cathartic change, total change, identity change. A Yehonasan who is the Kohen Gadol for Avodah Zarah could become the Shavuel, who is one of the most trusted Bali Tshuva in all of David HaMelech's kingdom. If Shavuel could do it, we could do it as well. All right, back to inheritance. V'abanim esav. So both say so again. Don't worry, the rest goes quickly. V'abanim esav. It's only the Agadato Gemaras that are very slow, at least for us. So now we've established, by the way, what we've established is that a father does inherit a son. Now, what the source for that is, we had a couple of different sources, but Lamaisa, at least where we're holding right now in inheritance law is, it appears that Halacha Lamaisa, a son is a first position inheritor, a daughter is a second position inheritor, and then if there are no children of the deceased, ultimately, again, it's the father who then inherits. That's what we think for now. Again, we'll see in the Rambam Hilchos Nachlos, we'll get the complete list. Next, sons inherit their father. Says the Gemara Minola. So we'll say, this is fascinating. Where do we know this from? Now, we'll say, for us, it's so intuitive that, of course, a son inherits a father. But the Gemara says, okay, what's the pasuk? What's the pasuk? See, here we go. So the Gemara says, what's the pasuk? Ish ki yamos. Well, listen to this. So the pasuk is Ish ki yamos ubein ein lo va'avartem es nachalos salabito. We saw this in yesterday's daf. Right? If a man dies and he doesn't have a son, so you will transfer his property. Right? What's the word? Not property. Estate. He'll transfer his estate ultimately to his daughter. So the Gemara Darshans, what do you see from here? Taima de'ein lo ben. The reason you give it to a daughter is because there's no son. Hayesh lo ben kodem. But if there is a son comes first. So we'll say, so this is fascinating. Because what the Gemara is actually saying is, it doesn't appear, according to this approach, that there's actually a pasuk that says a son inherits his father. Rather, again, since it says if a man dies and he doesn't have a son, so the property, the estate goes to his daughter. Okay, so I can infer from that pasuk that if there is a son, the son is the first position inheritor. Says the Gemara. Well, maybe not. Maybe Ika ben Leros. If there's a son, the son inherits. Ika bas tiros bas. If there's a daughter, the daughter inherits. Ika benobas. But if there's a son and a daughter, lo hay liros for lo hay liros. Maybe no one inherits. Right? Neither the son nor the daughter. The Gemara says that doesn't make any sense. Amud beis ve'ela man liros atu bar kasha demas liros. So who should inherit? Should the mayor of the city inherit? Right? In other words, as an expression. other words, that doesn't make any sense. If there's a son, the son will inherit. If there's a daughter, the daughter will inherit. But if there's a son and the daughter, no one inherits. Well, it doesn't make any sense. So who should inherit? So Gemara says, no. What did Rav Papa mean to say? Rav Papa meant to say as follows: Hachi kamina, Ika ben ubas, lo lahai liros kule velo lahai liros kule ela ki adadi lersu. Rather, maybe what it means like this: if there's just the son is the sole inheritor, and if there's just the daughter is the sole inheritor. But what if there's a son and daughter? Maybe there should be an equitable 50-50 split. Maybe that's what it means. So the Gemara says, Amarle Abaye v'itzrich kra la'ashmo inan heicha deles le elachad bra le'rsinu lekulin achasi. Do I need a pasuk to teach me that if there's only one son, the son inherits? In other words, we'll say that's intuitive. V'dilma hakamash malan debas nami bas yerushahi. Well, no. Maybe the pasuk is coming to teach me that a daughter also inherits. To which the Gemara says, no. We learned that elsewhere. Hahu mevechol bas yoreshes nachala nafka. We learned that already from a different pasuk that says kol bas yoreshes nachala. Ravacha bar Yaakov Amracha. So therefore, I'll say, just let me say, what are we trying to do over here? We're trying to figure out what is the source. What is the source that a son inherits from his father? So far, again, we have one opinion, right? The first opinion, Tanakama, Ish kiyamos ubein ein lo va'abarta nachlo lebito. Right? So that's the first source. Now a second source. Rav Bar Yaakov says from here, Lama yigaresh shem avinu mitoch mishpachto ki ein lo bein. So we'll say benos slavchad. So what happens to benos slavchad? Slavchad died. He only had daughters. So the daughters of Tzlavchad approach Moshe Rabbeinu and they say, why should our father's name literally cease to exist from our family? In other words, remember, Moshe Rabbeinu was ready to go ahead. In other words, not Moshe Rabbeinu was ready, but it would appear that the property of Tzlavchad was going to be distributed elsewhere. So the daughters of Tzlavchad said, our father has no son, but why shouldn't we inherit? So the Gemara says, so look at the lashon of the pasuk. Lamu yigaresh shem avinu mitoch mishpachto ki ein lo bein. Why should our father's name cease to exist from within our family just because he doesn't have a son? To which the Gemara says, Taima de ein lo bein. Now the reason why Benos Tzlavchad even approached Moshe Rabbeinu was why? Why? Because there was no son. Ha yesh bein kodem. But obviously, again, you see even in their request that they understood if there was a son, who would the inheritance go to? It would go to the son. Ay v'dilma benos tzlavchad hu dika amran hachi nitna Torah v'nitzchat shalacha. Now listen, here's what's interesting. The way the Torah is set up is the actual laws of inheritance come after the Benos Tzlavchad story. So maybe at the times of Benos Tzlavchad, the accepted practice was that a son comes before a daughter. But maybe once the laws of inheritance came, maybe sons and daughters inherit equally. Ella mechavarta kidishanin and meikara. Right? The Gemara says, let's go back to our original source. So Rabbi says, so therefore the Gemara reverts back now to the original pasuk of Ish ki yamos ubein ein lo va'avartem es nachalasa lebito. When does the inheritance go to a daughter? Only when there's no son. So again, Rav Bar Yaakov tried to put forward a different proof for this, but it didn't work out. Next, Ravina wants to advance another proof to this concept. Again, I will say, same theme. How do we know that a son inherits his father? So Ravina says, Mihacha, hakarov elav. So we'll say, so the pasuk says, V'im ein achim la'aviv unesatem es nachalosa l'sheiro hakarov elav. Who does inheritance go to? Inheritance always goes to the closest relative. Hakarov elav, hakarov karov kodem. The closer the relative, the closer you are aligned for inheritance. So we'll say, so now Ravina advances this, and Ravina says this, he in Ravina's mind, he says, so who does this refer to? Who does this refer to? A son. Because a son is the closest relative to his father. So the Gemara says, Umay kurva de ben mibas. I don't know. A child is a child. So why would you think that a son has any closer relationship? Again, when I say closer relationship, you understand, we're talking about halachically now, right? Why would we think that a son has any closer halachic relationship to his father than a daughter? In other words, both are children. So why can't hakarov mean a daughter as much as it means a son? I'll tell you why. Sheben kam tachas li aviv liyada ulistei achuza. So we'll say because a son stands in the place of his father for two important halachas. We saw this in the beginning of the parak, right? What two halachas? Yiyud, which means, let's say again, Yaakov, the father, has a Jewish maidservant. There is a mitzvah to marry your maidservant. If the father, Jewish maidservant, if the father doesn't do it, so the son, we'll call him Reuven has the ability to go ahead and do so. Right? Reuven has the ability to do so, an obligation to do so. Furthermore, again, if Yaakov the father is makdish ancestral land, so the halacha is if you're makdish it, you could redeem it, and then by Yovel you get to keep it. So if Yaakov the father doesn't do it, Reuven the son has the ability to do it. So two instances in which the son stands in the place of the father. Now this is dafka by the son. A daughter doesn't have the ability to do these things. Silber says that is not a fair statement. Number one, Yada bas lav bas yadahu. So we'll say, so first of all, you can't bring up Yud. Why? Because obviously that's not shaykh to the daughter, right? The daughter can't marry the maidservant. So that's not a fair comparison because she's just not part of that. Steachuz and nami mehai pircha gufahu da kaimale latana klum yeshum elamako sheben. Now, when it comes to Yud, if you remember again, in the beginning of the parak, the Gemara said you can't bring a raya from steachuz either, because remember again, steachuz itself was only learned out from Yibum, and Yibum only applies if there's neither a son nor a daughter. So essentially, we knock both of those off. Ella, said Rabbi Osai, it turns out that Ravina's proof is not a good proof, because just from the notion of hakarov, karov can mean either a son or a daughter. So therefore, we're back to square one. How do we know that a son is a first position inheritor of his father? Ella, mechavarta kidishaninon meikara. Right, Rabbi Osai, the Gemara says, it's the original pasuk. Ish kiyamos ubein ein lo va'avartem nachalaso lebito. If a man will die and he doesn't have a son, you transfer his estate to his daughter. When do we transfer an estate to a daughter? Only when there's no son. What does that show you? Son is a first position inheritor for his father. And I both say that's how the Gemara, that's the now. The Gemara says, but, v'bay semihacha. I could also give you one other proof. The pasuk says, you will cause it to be inherited to your sons after you. B'nechem v'lo b'nosechem. What do you see from here? It's your sons and not your daughters. Your sons and not your daughters. So you see that sons are first possession inheritors and not daughters. So one second. What about the Kriyas Shema? Right? So you say this every single day. If you do the mitzvahs, why should I do the mitzvahs? So that I will enjoy longevity and my children. So the Gemara says, so you're going to tell me that only means my sons and not my daughters? Bracha shiny. No, that's a bracha. Bracha is different. Bracha is different than halacha, right? By bracha, ultimately again, bracha b'nechem. Who does b'nechem refer to? By bracha, b'nechem refers to everyone. But it could be that by nachala, by inheritance, it only applies to sons. Say Rabbosai again. Takeaway. What's so? Remember, we always have to. We do a lot of information. So we always have to have a takeaway. What's the takeaway? Halacha l'maisa. A son is a first position inheritor for his father. In the absence of a son, then comes daughter. Where do we learn out that a son is a first position inheritor? Let's go with the primary source. Ish kiyamos ubein ein lo va'avartem nachalasa lebito. If you will go ahead and a man will die and he does not have a son, so you will go ahead and transfer the estate to the daughter. When does the estate go to the daughter? Ultimately, again, only when there is no son. Incredible. I will say, give me 2 more minutes, then we're going to stop. Va'achin mina'av nochalin umanchilin. So we'll say, remember again, the next statement of the Mishnah was that paternal brothers inherit from each other, right? So I said this is very important. Only paternal brothers inherit from one another, right? Maternal brothers do not share any inheritance rights in each other, which makes sense because the whole yesod of inheritance is patrilineal, right? So lemaisa again, so brothers, the Gemara says over here, according to the Mishnah, paternal brothers both inherit and bequeath. Says Gemara Minala. From where do I know that? Amar Rabba, Asya achva mibnei Yaakov. So Rabbi say ultimately again we have the Gzera Shava of achva. What's the Gzera Shava? So Rabbi say if you look 5 lines up from the bottom in the Rashbam, achva ksiv hacha unesatem es nachala so la'achiv uksiv hasam shneim asar avadecha achim anachnu bnei ish echad. So Rabbi say here's the Gzera Shava. It says you shall give the inheritance to the brothers, and then by the Shvatim it says we are. This is when Yosef, right? But before Yosef revealed his identity. So the brothers say, we are 12, right? You're 12 servants. We are brothers, the sons of the same man. What do you see from here? Rashbam says, B'nei ish echa miyusar, elijosh destam achin inun elamina av. So right, brothers ultimately again only come from the fathers. So the Gemara says, listen to this. So the Gemara says, Amar Rabba Asya achva mibnei Yaakov, ma lahalan mina av v'lo mina aim. Just like by the sons of Yaakov, they call themselves brothers because they all have the same father. Afkan mina av v'lo min ha'aim. So too when it comes to the laws of inheritance. So again, brothers are determined by paternal brothers and not maternal brothers. V'lamali. Why do you have to go through this whole drasha? I'll just say it simpler. Mimishpachto v'yarash also. We'll say the Torah uses the lashon of mishpacha when it comes to Yerusha. And we said, Mishpachas Av Kuriya Mishpacha, Mishpachas Aim in Kuriya Mishpacha. We've already established this, Rabbi said yesterday's daf and even the day before, that it is only the family of the father that is considered to be Mishpacha, but the father of the mother is not considered to be Mishpacha. To which the answer is halachically, Rabbi say halachically. Einachinami, that is true. V'chi itmar dirabba le'inyan yibum itmar. You're right. When Rabbi said his statement, Rabbi was saying, ultimately again of achva from Bnei Yaakov, he actually was making his statement by Yibum, right? Rabbi says, so again, Yibum only applies to paternal brothers. Where do we get that from? Because the pasuk by Yibum says, Ki yeshvu achim yachtov umeis echad mehem ubenein lo. If brothers, literally again, will live together means they're alive at the same time. One of them dies without sons. There's a mitzvah, or without children. There's a mitzvah of Yibum. How do we know what achim means? So Rabbi says, there's a gzer shav of achim by Yibum to achim by the sons of Yaakov. Just like achim by the sons of Yaakov means what? Paternal brothers. So too by Yibum, ultimately again, achim means paternal brothers. I say, how do we know by the laws of inheritance that it's only paternal brothers who inherit each other? We learned that out from Mimishpachto v'yarash oso. That in order to go ahead and inherit, you have to be mishpacha. What's the definition of mishpacha? Patrilineal mishpacha. So therefore, the only brothers that will go ahead, because we've already established that halachically, mishpacha means the mishpacha of the father, and therefore only brothers related through their father will ultimately inherit each other. Wow, what a start. What a start to the week. Shkayach, everyone. All right, Chevron Zoom, have a great day, everyone. A good tvach, a good yar, piskatava.
By the way, checking out one's maternal brothers is classical X-linked